Hello Cloud Pedagogians, welcome back to the course. In today's session, we are going to discuss Amazon EC2 Instance Storage and Amazon Elastic Block Storage. When you launched an EC2 instance, you are going to need some block storage to go with it. This block storage can be used as boot volume for your operating system or as a separate data volume. For example, think about your laptop. With a laptop, you can store your data in drives, and those drives can be either built in internally to your laptop or connected externally. EC2 instances have the same options as far as block storage goes. This internal storage is called Instance Store, and the external connected storage is called Amazon Elastic Block Store or Amazon EBS. Let's talk about Instance Store first. Amazon EC2 Instance Store provides temporary block level storage for your instance. Instance Store is a form of directly attached storage, which means the underlying physical server has at least one storage unit directly attached to it. This direct attachment is also the main advantage of using this form of storage. Because it is so close to the physical server, it could be very fast and respond very quickly. But while it can be very fast, there is also one big downside. Because Instance Store is directly attached to an EC2 instance, its life cycle is tied to the life cycle of your instance. That means if you stop or terminate an instance, all data in Instance Store is gone. It can no longer be used or accessed. Due to this, Instance Store is considered ephemeral storage. Instance Store is ideal if you are hosting applications that replicate data to other EC2 instances, such as Hadoop clusters. For these cluster-based workloads, having the speed of locally attached volumes and the resiliency of replicated data helps you achieve data distribution at high performance. It's also ideal for temporary storage of information that changes frequently, such as buffers, caches, scratch data, and other temporary content. If you delete your instance, the Instance Store is deleted as well. Over time, customers wanted the ability to keep their data even if they shut their EC2 instance down. So to provide that ability, Amazon created another storage option for EC2 called EBS volumes. As the name implies, Amazon EBS is a block level storage device that you can attach to an Amazon EC2 instance. These volumes, as the name implies, are drives of a user configured size that are separated from an EC2 instance. The drives are simply network attached storage for your instance. As I said already, you can think of it as similar to how you might attach an external drive to your laptop. EBS volumes act similarly to external drives in more than one way. Most Amazon EBS volumes can only be connected with one computer at a time. Most EBS volumes have one-to-one relationship with EC2 instances, so they cannot be shared by or attached to multiple instances at one time. For example, I can plug in my drive to only one laptop at a time. The same goes for EBS. Most EBS volumes have one-to-one relationship with EC2 instances, so they can't be shared or attached multiple instances at one time. When I connect the EBS volumes to my instance now has a direct communication line to the data in that volume. Nobody else can directly talk to that volume so that it can maintain secure communication. Note that recently AWS announced the Amazon EBS multi-attach feature that enables volumes to be attached to multiple EC2 instances at one time. This feature is not available for all instance types, and all instances must be in the same availability zone. It's better to read more about this scenario in the EBS document. You can detach an EBS volume from one EC2 instance and attach it to another EC2 instance in the same availability zone to access the data on it. If I decide I want to use that EBM volume with another instance, we can stop the instance, detach the volume, and then attach it to another instance in the same AZ. Much like you can unplug your drive from your laptop and plug it into another one. Or depending on the instance type and EBS volume we are using, we may be able to attach it to multiple instances at a time, which is called EBS multi-attach. The external drive is separate from the computer. That means if an accident happens and the computer goes down, you still have your data on your external drive. The same is true for EBS volumes as well. And perhaps the most important similarity is that an EBS volume is separate from your instance, just like an external drive is separate from your laptop. That means if an accident happens and the instance goes down, you still have your data on your EBS volume. This is what we refer to as persistent storage. You can stop or terminate your instance and your EBS volume can still exist with your data on it. Next, you are limited to the size of the external drive, since it has a fixed limit to how scalable it can be. For example, you may have a 2 TB external drive, and that means you can only have 2 TB of content on there. This relates to EBS as well, since volumes also have a max limitation of how much content you can store on the volume. So, how do you scale Amazon EBS volumes? You can scale Amazon EBS volumes in two ways. One way is increase the volume size as long as it doesn't increase above the maximum size limit. For EBS volumes, the maximum amount of storage you can have is 16 TB. That means if you provision a 5 TB EBS volume, you can choose to increase the size of your volume until you get to 16 TB. Another way to scale Amazon EBS volume is attach multiple volumes to a single Amazon EC2 instance. EC2 has a one-to-many relationship with EBS volumes. You can add these additional volumes during or after EC2 instance creation to provide more storage capacity for your host. Now we'll see what are the Amazon EBS use cases are. Amazon EBS is useful when you need to retrieve data quickly and have data persistent long term. Volumes are commonly used in these scenarios. Operating systems, like boot or root volumes to share an operating system. The root device for an instance launched from an Amazon machine image, which is AMI, it is typically an Amazon EBS volume. These are commonly referred to as EBS-backed AMIs. Next, databases. A storage layer for databases running on Amazon EC2 that rely on transactional reads and writes. The other one is enterprise applications. Amazon EBS provides reliable block storage to run business critical applications. Other one is throughout intensive applications. Applications that perform long continuous reads and writes or comes into this category. Now we'll see what are Amazon EBS volume types. EBS is often the right storage type for workloads that require persistent of data. However, the question typically comes down to which EBS volume type do I use? That's right. There are many different types of volumes, but they are divided into two main types. There are basically two main categories of Amazon EBS volumes, which are solid state drives, also called SSDs, and hard disk drives, which is HDDs. SSDs provide storage performance for random input-output, which are I/O, while HDDs provide strong performance for sequential I/O. AWS offers two types of each. You can see the chart that helps you decide which EBS volume is the right option for your workload. We won't be learning more about both of these types right now. It's good to know anyway. Now we'll understand what are the benefits of using Amazon EBS. It's highly available. When you create an EBS volume, it is automatically replicated within its availability zone to prevent data loss from single point of failure. Data persistence. The storage persists even when your instance does not. Data encryption. All EBS volumes support encryptions. Next, flexibility. EBS volumes support on-the-fly changes. You can modify the volume type, volume size, and input-output operations per second, which is IOPS capacity, without stopping your instance. Finally, backups. Amazon EBS provides you the ability to create backups of any EBS volume. Next, we'll see how we can take the backups of your EBS. The last thing we will need to talk about here is backing up data. Things fail. Error happen. One of those errors is not backing up data and then inevitably losing that data. So, you need to back up your data even in AWS. To prevent this from happening to you, you should back up the data even in AWS. Since your EBS volumes consist of the data from your Amazon EC2 instance, you will want to take backups of those volumes. The way you back up EBS volumes is by taking what are called snapshots. EBS snapshots are internal backups that only say the blocks on the volume that have changed after your most recent snapshot. EBS snapshots are incremental backups that are stored redundantly. The idea here is that if something goes wrong, you can create new volumes from your snapshots and restore your data to a safe state. For example, if you have 10 GB of data on a volume and only 2 GB of data have been modified since your last snapshot, only the 2 GB that have been changed or returned to Amazon Simple Storage Service, which is Amazon S3. When you take a snapshot of any of your EBS volumes, these backups are stored redundantly in multiple availability zones using Amazon S3. This aspect of storing the backup in Amazon S3 will be handled by AWS, so you won't need to interact with Amazon S3 to work with your EBS snapshots. You simply manage them in the EBS console, which is part of EC2 console. EBS snapshots can be used to create multiple new volumes, whether they are in the same availability zone or a different one. When you create a new volume from a snapshot, it's an exact copy of the original volume at the time the snapshot was taken. So that's all for today's session. Looking forward to seeing you again in my next video. Until then, take care.